Hello and welcome to the New Asheville podcast. Today I am joined by Charlie Baldwin. He is an instructor at the Art of Living Retreat Center, and he teaches meditation and breathwork. And not just there, but to a range of clients, from students to law enforcement. Today, we'll talk about how these practices help with stress, presence, and staying grounded in high-pressure situations. So how are you doing today, Charlie?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing good. I'm doing very good. I'm actually just recovering from a little bit of a sickness here. So if I sound a little bit extra nasally, that's why. But other than that, I'm doing very good.
Tis the season, right?
Yeah.
So tell us how you got into this line of work.
All right. So there's a lot of different answers I have to that question, depending on how far back I go. But I guess, I've always been interested in, I don't know always, but when I was in high school, I became very interested in spirituality. And I was, at that time, I grew up Presbyterian. And so that really started through the lens of Christianity. And I don't know if you're familiar with Erwin McManus, but he wrote a book called The Barbarian Way, which was very influential for me and kind of really for me to find like the spirituality, a lot of the juice in some of the stuff that I was hearing in church. And so I really went into college with like a very spiritual inclination. And that really, when I was in college and I was going to Christian fellowship, and also I was reading some books like A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and I was just starting to get interested in meditation and spirituality, and started to get into some different techniques of finding out about this connection of the breath and the mind. But I was a little bit also just confused. I was dabbling in things and I just like wasn't sure. There was just so much information out there. I remember I was watching
Right.
so many YouTube videos. Like this was like in the early 2010s, so it wasn't as prominent as it is today, but like there was still so many different YouTube videos or blogs I was reading. And then I was actually pretty depressed going into my junior year. And I don't even know if I would use the word depressed at the time, but I had definitely had very low energy. Like I was like skipping classes. I had already dropped out of a class. I had dropped out of my Spanish class without telling my professor. I was not seeing my friends as much. And I was actually about to drop out of school, but then one of my friends who knew I was interested in meditation, he said, he was like, there's this workshop coming up. Why don't you at least come and take this workshop and then make a decision after it, because you're already interested in this stuff and it's coming right here to our university. So you should just do it. So, sure enough, I did. It was the Art of Living's version of the program that I teach now, but for college campuses.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. It's called now it's called the Sky Campus Happiness Program. It had a different name at the time, but I took that program, and it was something that, like, on the retreat itself, it wasn't like I had any crazy aha moments, but there was something in my head that said, if I practice this breathing technique every day, I do think that some good things are going to happen. Like I could tell that there's some power behind this. So that's just really what I did. This was in like mid-October. And I just started practicing it every day. And I remember by winter break, so like mid-December, I just looked around and everything just seemed so much less intense. Like I was able to manage these things that seemed so overwhelming to me. And with that, I just felt like I had more energy, I had more confidence. And that was really just where it was something like, okay, something's working here. And I want to dive more into this. And that is what led me to first just being able to lead some simple meditations on college campuses, which I did at my school where I went to, Lehigh University. And then, one thing led to another. And then I decided to go through the teacher training to become a proper facilitator of the Sky Breathwork Meditation Retreat. And that's really over those few years of when I was in college, and I would be doing my meditation and my breathwork practice every day. I would be reading some wisdom, a lot of it from Gurudev, who's the founder of the Art of Living, who created the Sky Breathwork meditation. And just when I would be reading some of his books, I would be like, oh my gosh, all this stuff about religion and spirituality is just making so much more sense to me right now.
Yeah, it's all coming together.
Exactly. And I think maybe I was sharing this when we talked before, but how like it was really when I was doing that, I started doing that breath work and meditation practice consistently. And then I remember like going back to my hometown, Pittsburgh, where I'm from. And I remember specifically on one Christmas break, I went back and we went to church on Christmas. And like all of the so many different parts of the service and the ceremony and the rituals around it and the hymns. I remember we were like singing the hymns. These are like old school hymns at this 100-year-old Presbyterian church, and all of them just like made more sense to me, and I felt them from my heart in a way that I hadn't before. And so I was like, okay, I think there's something here. There's something of what I'm doing with this breath work and the wisdom I'm getting here with the art of living is connecting with this spirituality that I grew up with. And so that really just led me to wanting to explore it more and then eventually start teaching some of the breathwork and meditation programs.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. I was always fascinated by spirituality, and I was very Christian growing up. And I would always get to the edge and then I'd draw back. So I'm like, I feel like I'm getting too woo woo here. I'm getting away from my faith. And it's like eventually when I finally started getting more, I mean, it took me hitting that aha moment till I finally started really diving into it. And the awareness of spirituality and just consciousness, all of a sudden religion made even more sense, which was just the most bizarre thing to me because I thought it would start
Mm,
feeling
yeah.
foreign, or I would start feeling a lot of resistance going into the material, and no, it was
Mhm.
almost like a new level of understanding to it.
Yeah. No, that's I'm with you there on the same page. Actually, it was just a few weeks ago. I was actually in Colorado with a friend, and we were having this discussion about one of my favorite quotes from my meditation teacher, Gurudev, is he says that religion is like the banana peel and spirituality is the banana. And I feel like we get so caught up with the banana peel, and
You
spirituality is finding the juice, the fruit in the banana. And
I love that.
yeah, so that's something that I feel as though that my time with Art of Living has been very, yeah, there's just something about the way that Gurudev has been able to bring out that ancient wisdom, but in a modern context that was able to make sense to me so well of finding not only the not only the spirituality and a lot of the yogic practices and the breath work and meditation, but finding the spirituality even in Christianity, which was which is how I grew up and my
Yeah.
set of practices and everything like that. So yeah, anyway, I'm with you there on that respect.
Yeah. So one thing I'm really fascinated by with your work. So there's so many modalities for breath work and for meditation, and there's everything from guided meditation to doing the box breath, which is really popular right now. Like what separates the work you do? I mean, it seems like it's been not only successful for you, but something that people are really enjoying and finding highly effective.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think what's interesting is that for me, going when I was in college, I was so into like spirituality and I was reading like I remember I read a translation of the Yoga Sutras by I think it was by Swami Satchitananda who founded Yogaville. So like I was very interested in spirituality. So for me at the time, having like even though I did have a bit of a scientific mindset, the idea of like there being science backed behind like research behind breathwork and meditation techniques wasn't actually that wasn't something that I was looking for. That like I was like, oh, I need a technique that has a lot of research behind it, so it's for
Right.
sure thing. But I think for me, I do think now that I'm a little bit older and I've taught so many people, I do see how important that aspect is, especially in the West and especially in circles of academia or working with any other institutions, having a lot of the research behind breathwork and meditation. And I think the fact that sky breath is the cornerstone of the technique that we teach in the art of living, the fact that there's so much research behind it, it's one of, I think it might be even the most peer reviewed research technique out there with everything
Holy
from
crap.
aspects of depression, anxiety, Sleep is a big part of it, like how much there's been a lot of studies of it improving people's sleep, both in average civilians and also especially in like veterans recovering from PTSD and things like that. So I think the research aspect behind it is one of the reasons why it has been people have been open to trying it, more than maybe some other techniques. But also I think the fact that, in my experience teaching, so I've taught now for, let's see, 9 years, I guess, and thousands of people. And I think one of the fact that even after the first session, people feel something, and almost always, especially at the end of just like a 3-day retreat, there's something that people go like, oh wow, something happened. And one of the things that actually makes it what I joke about this with some of my friends also, or other teachers in the art of living, how I think one of the challenges of like explaining to people what are the benefits of doing breath work and meditation, specifically sky, but I think other people have a tough time explaining some of the benefits other times, is because the benefits could be so wide ranging. I could teach the same technique on one course and someone says, I haven't slept in 10 years and I slept through the night last night and that's exactly what I needed. Other people are saying, wow, I really just felt this big release. I feel so much lighter and I feel so much clearer. Other people are like, wow, I have so much energy now. I felt like I had no energy. And so there's all these different things that people are getting from it, even though we did the same breathing techniques all in a room together. But this is where it can sound kind of woo-woo to people, but it really does feel like people somehow get what they need from it in a on a mental, emotional, spiritual level. So that's been my experience, at least, not only from the doing it myself, but practice as a practitioner, but just from the many people that I've taught as well.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about too, is just what have you learned after teaching such a variety of people, from students to people who are in more intensive environments? What have been some of your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the first takeaway is just that people in different both stages of life, like in terms of age or just where they are, but then also of different backgrounds of life, different demographics, are simultaneously have different things on the surface that we're all looking for, but then underneath it all are all looking for the same things. Like on one level, on the more surface level, I've observed that college students, they want, this also depends on what college you went to, because at MIT, the college students were looking at ways to optimize their performance so they could do their homework faster, achieve better, right? And then out of the universities, there's a lot of loneliness on college campuses. So a lot of college students are looking for ways to feel like they can kind of overcome some of their social anxieties, social fears, so that they can, connect with other people and meet with and just feel that belongingness and sense of connectedness. And law enforcement, right? So we just taught a course last week. They're very much looking for an off switch for their brain, because they're constantly in hypervigilance. They're constantly getting calls about some bad thing happening, right? They're called to help solve some problem that's often has some sort of trauma associated with it, and they're so hypervigilant that we hear from them time again that they take all of that hypervigilance when they go home, and they're still hypervigilant when they're with their family. And so they're looking for that off switch. So on the surface, I've observed that there's so many different things that people are really looking for, but also when you go a layer deeper, everyone's really looking for just that sense of ease, contentment, that absence of anxiety, stress, tension, and just tapping into it, like realizing that there is a source of like contentment and peace that is already inside of you once you've removed some of those tensions and stressors and negative stories that circulate the mind. Ultimately, that's all what everyone's really after, I have found, and just kind of expressing it in different ways. So that's one of my main observations from teaching so many different demographics over the years.
Fascinating. I know one of my big theories when I look at people and as I've gotten into spiritualities, it's like we're all the same spiritual light inside and we're just conditioned and calloused by our own
Mm.
experiences, beliefs, and just sort of the world map we create. But at our core, we all want the same thing. Connection, tranquility, ease, and the ability to create and grow. And that's
Yeah.
really cool that you see that when you're teaching people this, as much as they're all searching for different types of benefits to gain from it, at the core they all want the same thing, which is that peace. So
Yeah.
that's fascinating. So
Yeah.
diving into breath work, I think a lot of people think of breath work as just learning how to breathe in, taking breaths slowly. What are people really looking for when they get into breath work? What is the benefit to breath work?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of there's so many different benefits to breath work. Like in the breath is there's so many secrets in the breath too. It's like that, one of these secrets that
That's so
that
poetic. I love it.
yeah, this is actually, these aren't my words. This is all from my breathwork teacher, Guru Dev. But a few of those things that he said that have really just stuck with me over the years. Like we're talking over 13 years now that I've been, doing some of these practices and hearing him talk about this, breath. And one of the things that he had pointed out to me that I was never observed this before, that each emotion has a corresponding rhythm of breath associated with it. And now when I think about it, it's
Okay.
like, oh, it's so obvious, of course. But
Right?
when I heard that for the first time, I was like, I never was aware of that. But when you think about it, it's like when you're angry, how do you breathe? We breathe a certain way, right? Like, there's like a sharpness
Yep.
to it. It's a little, you can hear people when they're angrily breathing, right? And
Yeah, you're anxious,
similarly,
it's more rapid. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
right. It's maybe shallow. It's more rapid. When you're sad, what do we when someone's acting out sadness, right? How do they breathe? There's that long sigh. The exhale is very pronounced, right? And then you see a long lost friend you haven't seen in a while. You're happy to see them. What happens? Wow, like the inhale becomes more exaggerated. So one of the core ideas behind breathwork is that there is this intimate connection between our emotions and our rhythm of breath, but that this isn't just a one-way street, that we can use the breath in specific ways to impact our emotions and the state of our mind. So this is one of the key aspects of breath work, that there's such an intimate connection there, and using it in skillful ways we can elicit a couple things. One, we can bring up those positive emotions, tap into that contentment, that light that you said is inside of all of us. And it really can help also. There's this element of the breath that is detoxifying. Like we're exhaling CO2. So like on a very practical level, right? We're exhaling some toxins in our system, but it also can, using the breath, it really breath work is such an integral part of so many martial arts as well as yoga practices, right? And why is this? Is the breath allows us to the energy to flow in a way through our system. And so through using the breath and through allowing energy to flow through us more seamlessly, it can release a lot of tension and trauma and anxiety that's stored in different parts of the body. So these are a couple of the things that are some of the many secrets that are hidden in the breath. And energy is another one, right? Like we think of all the time, when you think of when you're tired, right? Often what do we do when we're, maybe I'll just ask you, when you're feeling sleepy during the day but you still have to power through it, where do you go to, like, what do you problem?
The caffeine.
Caffeine. Yeah, right, a Monster or a Red Bull. And often that what we go to is one of those two things, right? Some sort of food, whether it's caffeine or, let me get a quick snack to pick me up, or we go to sleep, right? Sleep is another
Yeah.
main source of our energy. And it's like, but we're also sitting on this other source of energy that's really powerful, which is our breath, right? Like we know, of course, that we can't survive long without eating, but we can survive a few months. It wouldn't be pleasant. Maybe a few weeks you could survive without food, and sleep. You can survive a few days without sleep, but it would be unpleasant. But you could survive. But breath, right? You just have a few minutes without the breath and then it's over, right?
Yeah.
So this is another one of those secrets of the breath is like it's like we're sitting on this treasure trove of energy and we're always kind of accessing it. I don't know if you've heard before, the average person uses like maybe 35% of their lung capacity. And so
Yeah.
even just tapping into that a little bit more, it it lends itself to more energy and more say over the state of our mind.
Fascinating. I know, because I always thought like when you yawn and you're taking in that big breath, you feel more tired. Given I feel like that might be a different type of breathing right there. But that's really interesting. You kind of
That's
touched on this.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, but I was just saying that there is some of this connection with the yawning too. A lot of people, when they're doing the sky breath or even box breathing, some version of box breathing, a lot of yawning can happen because there's some energy moving in different ways. Some of the fatigue is leaving the system. So that is a very interesting observation there that I've also observed many times.
Huh. So one of the things I want to touch on, which you really did sort of dive into in your piece right there, but it's like when someone starts taking breath work seriously, what impacts does someone who practices breath work have on the mind, the emotional systems? What are the biggest impacts you see when someone really starts taking breath work seriously?
Yeah. I I'll start with me personally, what I experienced, and then I'll share a couple of things from that I hear that's very popular from the people that a common things from the people that I've facilitated the program with. For me, it when I do my daily sky breath meditation, often I'm doing it at the very beginning of the day, but sometimes I'm doing it later in the day. But for me, it's like this. It's like a reset button and also like a charge up for the day. Like I feel as though
Okay.
that all of the emotions are still there. Like there's still anger comes, sadness comes, frustration comes, all the negative emotions are still there, but it's like I'm able to process them quicker and they don't stick on so much. And this is you've probably observed this in your life, right? That there is this connection between how much energy we're feeling and how like the state of our mind, right? Like if our energy
Yeah.
is very low, that's when we're irritable, right? Like you've probably experienced that, right? Like if you're
Yep.
exhausted after a long day, that's when we're more easily to be triggered, more irritable, and that's when the negativity can stick onto us more. And so the breath work is like this way of kind of charging up that energy in the system, building up those reserves of energy. And I don't know if maybe have you heard the word prana before? Are you familiar with that word
Yeah.
prana? Or
Yeah.
or
Explain for our listeners though what that is.
yeah, prana is just that word for subtle life force energy. So, and if you or any of the listeners do martial arts and you've heard the word chi before, it's that same thing. That chi, prana, subtle life force energy that's allowing the body to have life, to be animate, and building up that reserve of building up that prana through breath work and meditation. I have really experienced that, able to move through negative emotions so much more easily. I can't tell you how many times where I especially remember when I was in college and first learning this technique, and I would like, oh, I don't want to do my breath work today. And I would like sit down and I'd be frustrated. And I have all these other things I want to do. And I would just have all this negativity. And I would like sit down to do my sky breath meditation. And then 25-30 minutes later, I would be like, wow, like something happened. Like I feel so much more centered. I feel so much more relaxed and energized at the same time. And so that for me is something that I find is that powerful combination of feeling both relaxed and energized at the same time. And then when I'm teaching, whether it's college students or people coming to the retreat center, another big one that I do hear a lot about is sleep. And I think because in our modern times where we have there's so much stimulation, especially visual stimulation now with the phones, and we're looking at so many screens, and we just have generally bad sleep habits, I think. And we also, people as they go to bed and they're lying on their pillow and they have a million thoughts happening, and that lends itself to not so great sleep. So I personally I do find better sleep, but this is something I hear so much from other people that when they're practicing sky is that with a little bit of consistent practice, they find that their sleep patterns improve so much that when you're not lying in bed and you have that baseline level of anxiety that's already there, when that starts to go down, then just sleep, it just seems like it naturally improves there. And I don't know all the scientific methodology of or like explanations of why that is, but there's certainly some powerful connection with the breath work reducing the stress and anxiety that leads to better sleep.
Yeah, and just to build on what you're saying, I mean, it's like I look at emotions as like energy, and if we don't allow ourselves to process it, we store it inside.
Yep.
And when we're constantly distracted, our last episode was actually all about digital overload and learning how to take space in between technology. I mean, so many
That's
people
so
deal with
relevant.
those racing thoughts at night because they're running from their thoughts all day, and then when you go to bed, there's nothing you can do to distract yourself, so that just comes flowing out over you.
And that
And
and that has totally been me. That I mean, there's so many times where I find myself and I'm like, wait, how long did I just spend looking at this
yep,
device? Like how long did I spend? And that for me is where that's when I know it's like, okay, if I do some breath work right now, I feel like it's a way to kind of clear out some of that brain rot, clear out
yeah, and
some of that.
reground yourself. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. So I feel like, you know, my experience is that when I'm looking at the screen so long that you like stop breathing, your breath becomes so shallow and then that just really negatively affects everything. And then that's when one of the things I found so powerful about the breath work is helping transition out of when I've been looking at a screen too long. That's definitely been a big one for me.
yeah, that's so huge too because I think people need time for stillness. It's so important. One other thing
Absolutely.
you brought up when you were talking about the benefits there is, I mean, you were talking about how when our emotions are sort of going all around, our thoughts sort of follow it. And the way I look at it is it's almost like your mind is a clear lake, and when you start feeling an emotion, your mind gets dyed whatever color you're feeling. And you start going
I
down
like
that
that
rabbit
analogy.
hole of
Yeah.
anger, irritability. You start having those kind of thoughts, and it becomes a part of you. Which I mean, in the
Yep.
healing community, it's all about creating space between you and your thoughts. But no, that's just really fascinating.
Hmm. Yeah, that just like you said, that ability to using the breath as a way to, sometimes I've heard people say about some of these different techniques or breath work and spirituality and stuff of like that meditation, people sometimes view that as, oh, you're avoiding your problems. You're just like sitting down doing nothing, like go try to go
Yeah,
solve your problems or whatever. And what I really see that meditation and breathwork as is this ability, like just like you said, there's so few spaces in our life now where there is stillness, right? That where there is a
yeah,
space for emotions and thoughts that they're there, but they're so pushed down or they're so in the background because we're stimulating ourselves with something else that when you do a consistent practice of breathwork or meditation is like allows the space for those things to come up, bubble to the surface and get processed, which is why so many times for people, especially at the beginning of their journey, but really any time, is that it may seem like there's some unpleasantness that can come up in the breath work. There's some sitting down maybe for 25 minutes or so. Maybe the first 15 minutes are uncomfortable or you have a
yeah.
uncomfortable thought that's coming up. And so then sometimes people, especially at the beginning, will say, "Oh, I tried meditation, but it brought up anxiety, or I tried breath work and it brought up some anxiety for me." And what I say to that is, no, that's good. You're just at the beginning. It's like
Yeah,
it's supposed to come up. It's already there somewhere, and this is the opportunity for it to come up and then leave you. You know,
yeah.
that's
I think
that
another
that
big one I hear people saying is it's like I can't stop my thoughts. Like I'm trying to clear my mind and I can't clear my mind. And I'm like, no, you're doing it right. You're doing it right.
yes.
You're not going to stop the thoughts from coming out. It's just learning how to not let them be so sticky.
Yes. Oh, I like that analogy. Yes, that's right. I know so many people that we ask people, you know, what brought you here to the retreat center? Like, what brought you here to this to learn breathwork or meditation? And so many of them are like, well, I've tried meditation before, but I just have too many thoughts. I have too many, I can't do it. And that's where I'm like, okay, you're in the right place. Definitely using, and this is another, back to your question a couple questions ago about like why the breath, or what's special in the breath. And it's this, this connection not only between our mind and emotions, but also that we can use the breath to gently guide the mind back into the present moment. And that when the mind is constantly going all over the place, it has so many thoughts, regretting the past or worrying about the future or just all over the place, the breath is that tool that's like the body. It's always in the present moment, right? You can't breathe for the future. You can't breathe for the past. The breath is always in the present moment. And so when people have all those thoughts and they feel like, oh, I can't meditate, I have too many thoughts, that for me is like, oh, then perfect. You need to do a little bit of breath work first. That can help settle the mind, and that brings you into that meditative state. So that's where that connection of breath work and meditation is so powerful, because for a lot of people, and this is actually why Gurudev founded the Art of Living, because he was already teaching meditation for some years before founding the Art of Living, but he just could see with people that they needed a little bit of help getting into that meditative state. There was something missing. They needed another step, another tool to relax their mind, to get into that meditative state. And that's when he started teaching the breath work as well.
So you were talking a little bit about past and future, and I was curious, when it comes to a lot of the suffering we go through, when it comes to the emotions, anxiety, depression, the realm of things that we try to use meditation and breath work for, how much does that play a part in it?
In the past and the future?
Yes. How much does the past and future weigh on our present moment?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at our day, I think so much of our lives is, of course, we're in the present moment, our body's in the present moment, but just a little bit of observation of what's happening in the mind, almost, for most people, almost their entire day could be thinking about the future or thinking about the past. Like, even, when I think about just times when I was even in school or in class or something, I'd be listening to the professor, but like my mind would be like, oh no, I have to do this after, and oh my gosh, I can't believe I have another project, and then I should have done my homework before this because now I want to do this thing with my friends after. And throughout the day, our minds are constantly going past, future, just vacillating back and forth all day long. And it's each of those. In the future, the mind can get stuck on, when the thoughts about the future come up, that's where we can get caught in anxiety or nervousness about the future, or fear. And then when we're thinking about the past, that's where we can get caught in anger or regretting the past. And of course, there's positive emotions that we can get so excited about the future, and we can be nostalgic for the past. So I really think that so much of our lives, it's like this default. We've almost by default, our minds are in the future or in the past, and using breath work is a tool for gently guiding the mind back into the present moment, and back in a way where it's serving us. It's not saying, of course, I hear, this is another thing that I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I would say misconception, but sometimes that are people that are weary of, meditation, or weary of some of the wisdom around being in the present moment or stuff like that, where they say, but you have to plan for the future and you need to learn from the past. And, if I'm living in the present moment, isn't that just hedonistic? Like, I need to plan for the future, right? And what I'm saying is, and what the Art of Living we say is, of course, you have to plan for the future. This is very important, planning for the future, taking time to learn from the past. But there's a difference of doing that consciously versus when the mind is just unconsciously reeling in the future or reeling in the past, which is more of the case of what's happening. Right. I give the example sometimes when I'm teaching of like, there's nothing wrong with, of course, if you're, let's say you have a family, you sit down with your significant other, or even sit down with your boss at the beginning of the week, and you plan out your week or you plan out your month. That's good. You need to plan for the future, but you're doing the planning in the present moment, But then if you're driving home from work and your mind is thinking, oh, I should have said that in the meeting, and I should have said this, and if I would have said this, and that would have been different, then that's not really serving you. That's just you're just getting stuck in a worry, and then your energy just starts coming down. So that's learning from the past, reflecting, taking conscious time to reflect on it, very positive. Taking conscious time to plan for the future, very positive, but being in the present moment and not unconsciously swirling in those past or future thoughts is powerful. And that's where joy is, relaxation is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Does
Well,
that
it's like
answer
there's a difference between reflection and dwelling, right? I mean,
exactly?
which is I think where people really get hung up because I think that is a big thing. People are like, "Oh, I'm just trying to plan for the future, all the possible outcomes," and it's like, no. The more you do that, the more you're going to end up restricting what you're going to be able to do in the future. You
It's a
got to
great
be able
point.
to trust the future.
That's a great point. Yeah. I know we get so, and I mean, I'm guilty of this too, where I think that the more thinking about the future is like, oh, it's productive, but it's not always productive. If you're just going, oh, but then if this happens, this could happen. If this happens, that could happen. This,
You know?
and it's like at some point that isn't serving you. It's not actually helping anyone. So yeah, I'm 100% with you there.
Yeah. So when we start going through these emotions, past and future, I mean, what is the toll stress really takes on the body and the
Yeah, and it's immense actually. I mean, there's so much research now that is coming out about how stress is related with so many different health effects just on the physical body. Forget about just the fact that it's unpleasant, but that long-term stress without any mitigation really leads to so many things, some gut issues, heart issues, and there's so much research out there about that now. And also when you think about the times that when we come up with creative solutions, or we solve problems in the ways that are really beneficial for ourselves or others, all of that comes through a mind that has some level of relaxation. And it's not to say that stress can be there's some amount of stress that can be positive, right? Like you have some, we talk about this with the law officers, right? That there's some situation that can trigger something, that they have to respond quickly, and so some stress gets pumping, and they have to use that energy to solve a problem, or deal with a solution. But when that stress stays, when it never actually comes back to regulation, when we're constantly living in that stress, reliving situations over and over again, or already stressed about situations that haven't happened yet, that's where we never let the mind get down to the relaxation state where things can get processed. And then that's also when that creativity can come up. And so many people in so many different fields will all tell you that where did the solutions of their problems come from that they've been thinking about for a while is when they took a break, or they were in the shower, or they went for a walk. And when you give that space in the mind to unwind a little bit,
you
to
know?
let go, to get out of the tunnel vision, that's when those really good solutions can come. So that's where I would say that when we're constantly in that state of stress or anxiety, and the baseline is already up here, then we never get to that point where we can find those creative solutions, or you know, or really just tap into that joy that's inside of us. That if we're always in that heightened state, then we're missing out on that joy that's in the present moment, that's peace that's there. So, there's that very practical aspect to it, and then also just that feeling level. We want to enjoy our lives, right? So being constantly stressed or anxious is obviously not doing the job for that.
I'd be curious your thoughts on this. One thing that I've wondered if it's something I'm seeing or something I'm projecting is when I started getting into healing, I started doing this work where I was sitting still, letting all this crap come to the surface. And it's like I feel so many people live in hypervigilance to some degree or
Yeah.
the other. It's that constant busyness, that constant trying to manage everything and feel in control. Do you see that a lot where there is a good majority of people that live in this state of constant activation?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people that come to the retreat center, students, certainly a lot of first responders feel this way to even a more heightened degree. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it seems to be one of the trademarks of our current times, where
Yeah.
whether it's because there is so much information that we're exposed to. There's so much more stimuli than our brain has evolved to deal with. I think that leaves a base level of anxiety that is newer. I do. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of studies that have shown, especially around that 2013, 2014 time. Specifically, I think the studies that I was aware of around were mostly with younger people, like teenagers, that the spike in anxiety and it just went off the charts right around that time. And a lot of people do connect that with smartphones and the changing of how a lot of the
Yeah.
apps are. That was also a time when a lot of the apps went from just like full useful tools for connecting to, like, casinos on your phone where they're
Yeah.
using every trick in the book to get you, staring at your phone for as long as possible. So I think these are all factors of why that hypervigilance is, like, probably more prevalent now than ever. So the short answer is yes, I do see that in a lot of people that come to the center or college campuses and everywhere that I've been teaching recently.
Yeah, that's fascinating because there's a book out there, The Anxious Generation, which talks about
Oh,
how
yeah,
smartphones
I'm
have been
familiar.
impacting children and how anxiety is so prominent in the youth. And as much as I've seen a lot of the correlation, yeah, that makes so much sense with smartphones and everything.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't read that one, but I'm very familiar with, I don't know if you've heard of Cal Newport. He wrote the book Deep Work. That's probably his most popular one.
Okay, yep.
He has digital minimalism was his one after that, and he references anxious generation, in just this connection of that increase in smartphones and the, what's the word, not gamification of apps, but the direction of apps going to optimizing people staring at the screen longer, basically.
Yeah, the
Which
algorithms and everything playing amok
exactly,
on
yeah.
us.
So, but yeah, it does that hypervigilance is certainly there in every demographic that I'm teaching. I'm seeing it in, yeah.
Yeah. So I found it really fascinating that you were able to start teaching breath work in law enforcement. I always thought that might be an area where there might be some resistance to it. What got you into that field?
Well, so it wasn't actually even this. Well, what happened was that another Art of Living teacher who lives here at the center, her name's Patty Montella. We went to Hickory, which is just a town about an hour away from we live here in Boone, and we wanted to. This is a city; it's growing. It's a lot of growth is happening there, and we are, this is our main North American headquarters here in Boone, North Carolina. And so we just wanted to reach out to some of the communities that surround us and say, hey, we're in your backyard. Let us know how we can be of service. And we teach these techniques and all these different demographics all around the world. So we just wanted to meet some leaders in the communities around us to offer our services and see how we could help them. And in this town of Hickory, we ended up teaching a course with faith leaders, nonprofit leaders. Law enforcement was on that course, including chief of police, deputy chief of police. And everyone just had a very positive experience. And I will say that there is something about that particular town of their police department is just always on the cutting edge. They're known for creating chief of police in other areas of North Carolina as well.
Okay.
They're very progressive and well developed in terms of leadership development and looking for tools. And so when after we taught them, then there was through some different coincidental experiences that we got connected with a captain in the North Carolina Highway Department, and he was very interested in what we're doing. And so then we started teaching some people, some North Carolina state troopers and sergeants and captains. And so it was kind of through these just few steps of just one thing led to another, and it just became very clear. We were able to get some of these law enforcement to share some of their experiences, and that really inspired other law enforcement people to say, our department could really use that. Like what we're hearing from a lot of these leaders, especially some of the older people in law enforcement, is that they're saying it's just more clear than ever that we need more tools for you know, turning that switch in our brain off that is
Yeah.
constantly on, that's constantly hypervigilant. And in this last retreat that we taught, we had about 10. It was a mix of local law enforcement, highway patrol, and what we kept hearing was that they were almost sad that no one had ever exposed them to these types of tools when they started. They were sharing how I can't believe we are put in these situations where we have to deal with so much of these traumatic situations,
Right.
and we didn't have any tools to let go of that stuff. We just have to go and bring that home to our family, and then that affects family life. And so that was very powerful for me to hear, of that they really feel as though now is the time where there's so much tension and stress that comes along with their role for so many different reasons, and that having a tool to let go of that tension, let go of that stress, and relax the mind for a little bit is so valuable to them. And so that's kind of why I think there's been some momentum with that, is just that they're so desperately looking for different tools to help their mental and emotional well-being in ways that it wasn't being taken care of before. So that's the high level of how we got into it and got some momentum going.
No, that's amazing. And I think it's a field that needs it so badly just because it's so stressful. And I mean, they have such a responsibility, but also to themselves, which I think can get lost in translation with how much piles in on them. And one of my big questions for you was going to be is how has this type of work been received, which it sounds like really positively.
Yeah, I would say it's always at the beginning, when people, especially groups that have, no interest or no prior interest in meditation or breath work, there definitely can be skepticism up front, for sure.
Yeah.
But also it's very different than when I started this, because when I started meditating like 15 years ago, I didn't know one person that had a meditation or breathwork practice. I had never heard of anyone in my life doing any of these things. And then slowly in the 2010s, meditation started becoming a little bit more popular. And then in the last 5 years, breathwork is starting to become more popular. And so far and wide now, more people have a little bit of a thought like, okay, I've heard this and I've heard some other benefits of this. So there's generally some open-mindedness there. But really what we try to do is just give people some sort of experience as soon as possible, so that once you taste it, you know that, oh, something works here. Okay. Like, regardless
Yeah.
of if like this seems or and we've taught in, people that come from rural areas where this is especially like weird, like especially like not something that was considered, whether it's not considered, manly, or not considered just, part of how you're supposed to deal with your mind and emotions,
Right.
things like that. And but what we find is once people get just a little bit of a taste, just one session, or especially if they do the workshop where they get a few sessions and learn the sky breath, that it just becomes so obvious that, like, oh yeah, I can see why we would need this. I can see why this would be beneficial. So yeah, the short answer is there is some skepticism up front, especially with certain demographics. But once people get just a taste of what the breath can do, and especially with the sky breath, it just becomes so obvious of, oh yeah, I will benefit from this being in my life.
Yeah.
And then that's where then when you hear, especially when it comes to groups like first responders, especially law enforcement, they really need to hear it from another person in law enforcement to trust it, right? Like, it's one thing for a civilian to say this is going to have so many positive effects, but when law enforcement hears from other law enforcement of how powerful and how positive it's been for them, that's where it becomes much easier to just say, yeah, just come on and try it, and they have a good experience. So that it makes it easier for more people to try it.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love that they're being receptive to it too, because there's the world is changing, and I think culture's starting to move with it. But I think
Mhm.
this kind of work you're doing is so vital to the lives of so many, especially those who deal with so much chronic stress on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
as far as for listeners out there, I mean, when what moments in everyday life would you say would be important to start cultivating practices around breath work, meditation?
Yeah, there's so many different types of breath work out there that can have some different effects on the body, and there's so many different types of meditation out there. And so, for example, if we want to do one, I can lead a breath work for the listeners for now. But there's one technique, for example, straw breath, which we could do if you'd like. But straw breath is a tool that is great for when you're feeling that anxiety, like there's anxiousness. If you're, maybe you're having some panic in the system, straw breath is it's a very simple tool. It's not something you have to go to a retreat like sky breath and learn for 3 days. It's something that you can just do 5 breaths of this that can just settle the mind down a bit, and it's very powerful. And then another technique, for example, bellows breath, also called Bostrika. This is like an energizing technique. So when you're feeling that, 2 o'clock, and maybe you already had your caffeine for the day and you need a little pick me up, and the mind is starting to get a bit foggy or dull, then doing a few rounds of the Bostrika, the bellows breath technique, can help bring that alertness to the system, that alertness and energize and focus. And so there's so many different types of breath work that you can do. And then for me, with something like when it comes to sky breath meditation, for example, there's some practices that it's to set aside a little bit of time to learn them properly, like go to retreat somewhere, or even we have online retreats as well. People can learn sky, and setting aside a few hours to learn a proper daily practice, like something that you're going to do every single day, just to get some baseline stability. And when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, it's not powerful. I just mean to really have a powerful start to eliminating tension, stress, get the anxiety out of the system. Having that daily practice is like it's like your baseline workout routine. It's like you have a routine, you go to the gym, and people are so used to that. We're used to like, okay, I have a workout regimen. But now I think in the 20s, people are starting to come to the realization where, you know what? It would be really good if I had a daily practice for my mental and emotional well-being. And that's what learning something like sky breath for me has been, is that like foundational piece that is, okay, come what may, I'm going to do this every day, and it gives me this solid baseline of mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. So does that kind of, I don't know if that answers what your
No, I
question
think
was.
that answers it perfectly right there. And I would love if you shared a breathwork exercise with our listeners, because we love to throw exercises and meditations at the end of each of our episodes, and I think you might have way better insight than even we share on a regular. So, yeah.
I mean, this technique here, this straw breath, which one I was just mentioning, very simple technique to do. And like I said, this is one when you're feeling tension, anxiety is high. This is a great way to just relax the body, relax the mind a bit. So to do this technique for straw breath, what you're going to do is, and you can close your eyes if you'd like to start with this, but we're going to take a breath in through the nose as if we're filling up the whole body, like from the bottom of the feet, through the legs, filling up the whole body, filling up all of the lungs. And then as we exhale, we're going to purse our lips as if we're breathing through a tiny straw, a small straw through our lips, and we're going to exhale slow as we can through the mouth. So we're exhaling and just keeping that exhale, elongating that exhale as long as possible. And once you've fully exhaled all of the air from the lungs, then once again through the nose now, once again breathing in as if we're filling up the whole body from the bottom of the feet to the top of the head, filling up the lungs, filling them completely. And once we can't breathe in anymore, then pursing the lips once again, breathing out as if we're breathing out through a small straw in the lips. Exhaling completely. And once again, breathing in through the nose, from the bottom of the feet, all the way up to the top of the head. Breathing in, filling it up completely. And once you can't breathe in anymore, pursing the lips again, breathing out through that small straw, through the pursed lips. And let's do 2 more breaths on our own, at your own pace. Breathing in completely through the nose and exhaling as slowly as possible through the straw, the fake straw through the mouth. And on the final exhale, let all of the air out through the lungs, and then keeping the eyes closed, return the breath to normal, and just observe the state of the mind. Just observe what's happening inside. And when you're ready, slowly you can open the eyes.
Man, that's good.
Yeah, did you enjoyed it?
I did. I feel so relaxed right now.
Nice. Hopefully you weren't too anxious before starting it.
No, I wasn't too high up there, but I'll tell you what, I could take a nap now.
Nice, nice. Yeah, just a few moments of some simple but effective breathwork techniques can it has some shift on the mind. It has some shift in the body, and this one's a very good one for relaxing. Very, very powerful for relaxing when the mind is racing or like I said, that anxiousness is there. Super, super powerful.
Well, like we were talking about earlier, anxiousness seems to be such an epidemic nowadays that I think this was probably one of the best ones you could have brought up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course, of course. And it's one that you can, anyone can put in their pocket and take with them anywhere. It's right before, if you have to, go into a meeting that you're not sure about, or if you're sitting and you have just feeling that heart beating fast and the mind racing. It's a very powerful technique.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts you'd like to leave our audience when it comes to this kind of work in their own practices?
I would say that, like we've talked about, it just now more than ever, with so much stimulation that is out there, setting aside some time every day for silence is just so powerful, so beneficial, and just so beautiful. We live our lives. It's so easy now to live our lives without any silence. It's so easy to have the focus outside all of the time, and to cultivate a daily practice of even for just a few minutes going inward is so many things can be discovered, so many things can be processed and let go of. And if you ever feel that you can't meditate, or there's too much negativity that is happening inside that's preventing you from looking inside, then I would say that's where, do some breath work, do some breath work, sky breath meditation, something that allows you to tap into that deep meditative space that is inside of you. And so just that's what I would like to leave people with. Even if you feel like you can't meditate, then know that there's definitely things that you can do to tap into that stillness within inside, and you just give it a little bit of time. Just have a little bit of faith that just like when you go to the gym and you start working out, you don't check your biceps the next day and say, "Oh, I've gained so much muscle." Takes a little bit of time, but when you go to the gym, if you go to the gym every day, you're going to see results. The same thing, just have that faith. If I do some breath work and meditation every day, you'll start to see some results, and who knows what they could be. Whatever is needed though will come.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love that analogy. And where can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is charjbaldwin. And then also I can find me, I teach programs both online and also at the Art of Living Retreat Center here in Boone. If you'd like to come for a retreat, it's a great place to visit, whether you learn sky breath meditation or do one of our spa treatments. The Art of Living Retreat Center in Boone is a great place to be. And yeah, I would be able to connect with people online, and yeah, I'm open to answering any questions about breathwork, meditation, or anything like that. So yeah.
Beautiful. And we'll have all the links in the show notes below. But I must say, when I saw the facility, oh my God, I can't even believe that's in the United States. That place is amazing.
You guys have to get out here sometime. You have some great, we don't have the mountains the size of you guys in Colorado, but this is, we're in a rainforest here. So it's a totally different feel, a little bit more of a tropical, well, I don't know about tropical feel, but it has a really different feel than out in the mountains in Denver.
It'll feel tropical to us for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I would love to connect and come out and visit, because I am just blown away and think it looks so amazing, and even maybe do one of these retreats.
Yes, dude. Yes, you should. You should. We'll connect. We'll make it happen.
Hell yeah, man. Let's do it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Charlie. This has been an amazing conversation.
Great
With
talking
love and
with you, Michael.
gratitude. Ad lucem.
Tell Justin I said hi.
Will do.
All right, take care.